Okay, so hey everyone, and if you're watching the replay, welcome. We're just kicking off our monthly session, and we are going to get into a deep dive with a few people on the call today. But before we did, I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts that have really been front of mind at the moment. And so, for those that you guys are on live, feel free to interject and talk. This is not like a one-way thing, but I feel like it's a great opportunity just to not just go through where you're at the moment and work through your specifics, but where I see the opportunity to share new insights or fresh insights or what's going on in the world at the moment, and just help you kind of make sense of that when it comes to your marketing. I really feel that I can add additional value to you in that way and really just support you and give you some extra context there. I'm not quite sure. I'm still finding the right words for it. So just by way of a bit of background introduction, I mean, you don't need me to tell you that there's some pretty far out freaky stuff going on in the world at the moment on so many levels. And I think we're all feeling it in different ways. And it started for me, it started on Monday when I was just feeling so weirded out, so flat, so disturbed. And yeah, on the circumstances, things were fine. Yes, I'm in home quarantine, but kids were fine, they're happy. It was a nice day. This food in the fridge. I kind of posted this on Facebook, but yet there was a real sense of just collective, something's not right, just feeling a bit icky or frustrated or whatever. So I was leaning into that feeling a bit, to the point where I was distracted. I couldn't concentrate. I was teary even for no reason. No one said anything. No one did anything. It was just a lot of just stuff. And so I found it very difficult to concentrate on anything personal or private. And I then saw a post of a friend of mine who's an author and a writer, and she had mentioned something a little bit similar. I hadn't kind of gone into it in that level of detail, but I sensed that emotion, and then it was like she had captured the thoughts in my head. So then I put a post out on Facebook, on my personal one, just to say, this is what I'm going through at the moment. It's really kind of weirding me out, but is anyone else noticing the same thing or feeling anything similar? And I was really surprised at the hard and fast volume of people, not who were saying, oh yeah, I'm here for you and all the rest, because that's what sometimes we do, be social on social media and share stuff and people come around us. But I was just amazed at the number of people who were like, me too, me too. And these were people in Melbourne. These were people in different parts of Australia, Sydney especially. They were people in America. They were people in the UK. And there was this sense of people just saying to me, you described exactly what I'm feeling. And these were professional people, ordinary people, corporate people, business owners, etc. So I just started to give a little bit more attention to this, and I'm going to explain how this all factors into marketing and content and thought leadership in a second. But I just started to lean in and be more attentive to this, because I'm like, this is really interesting. Like Oksana said a few minutes ago, about being curious. I'm like, all right, I'm feeling like this. Other people are feeling like this. So then I just started being observant what people that I know, including some, hugely successul people that I'm, in a private chat, there's three of us. And, one of my mates lives on the other side of town running a couple of $1 million business. And she works with very stressed out, high level corporate executives. She does genetic coding and something like that. She's PhD smart and all the rest, for big corporations, helping them improve their performance using genetics or whatever. And she was telling me the same thing. She's like, man, I couldn't get off the lounge on Monday. I was a couch. I was like a wreck. And so then I'm starting to hear this from all different people all over the place. And then I'm starting to notice it in posts. And then this morning, so things settled a bit on, Monday or on Tuesday or Wednesday, but I still felt it was very much an undercurrent. It was very strong on Monday, but then it was an undercurrent. And then I during the middle of the night, last night, I woke up at like 3 o'clock in the morning and this stuff's on my mind. And I'm like, man, I had almost like the words for a blog post that I wanted to write. And sometimes like I know enough now to know that when you feel inspired to write something, to go with that, because, that inspiration, it will come and then it will leave. And you might have a vague concept, but the inspired flow won't come in the right way. So it was really inconvenient. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever. And I sat at here where I am, and I wrote this post, which if you saw my email this morning, you would have already seen it. And then I turned it into a blog post. But it was really very much about, all right, so this is where people are at. And at the same time, so my audience is people who are business owners, they're self-employed, they're entrepreneurs, they're people who are building something in the world, social impact creators. The common denominator is that they have a message or something to communicate, and they need to do that via marketing themselves. And how you show up and do that in this environment, it's not a static, constant, one size fits all. When the world changes, the market changes. And don't even go there with what we're seeing, like women getting shot and kids and people hanging off planes and just freaky, distressing stuff. And this is unnerving people really at their core. It's like the most similar thing I can explain is probably not quite to the same degree of intensity, but very similar around Black Lives Matter when George Floyd was murdered. Like there was this collective just grieving and angst, and it's a bit like that this week when I think a lot of it, there's pandemic, there's cases all over the place, there's what's happening, in other parts of the world, but we all human and we all somehow connected, and that affects us. So bringing that back to marketing, for us who are marketing ourselves as a business or whatever it is, we're in the business of communicating things to people and speaking to people. And part of that is being able to be sensitive and contextual to where people are at. And there is a very real risk for people if they just show up and keep, banging the drum and doing what they're doing in an environment where people are feeling more sensitive, more fragile, their attention is fragmented, they're easily distracted. There is, there is a very real risk that will come across as insensitive and tone deaf. And so it's really important. Then you think, well, what is the right thing to do? Is it to just wait and hide and go away? No, it's actually in these times that actually presents an opportunity for us to actually show up, to lead, but to do so from a comforting and nurturing and encouraging place, rather than a soapbox place or a, really intellect heavy advice place. It's almost like, as I wrote in my email, and you all would have received that, if not, you can go back. It's about like leaning into where people are at and just being in solidarity with them, just being there. And since sending that email, which literally my son was like, I was trying to get one ready for school and the other one I'm trying to play a game of mini pool with him, and he comes up and I'm like, all right, you can click send on that email, see all those people that it's going to. And so my 6-year-old clicks send on the email. I go downstairs, finish the game of pool, set up their school, come back, and I've got several emails in my inbox and messages on my Facebook saying, I just got your email. It really spoke to me, this, I love these thoughts and all of that. And that is just about meeting people where they're at the moment. So the few lessons that I want to pull from that is, one, when you're feeling really inspired to write something or to share something, I want to encourage you to lean into that, because that's coming through you from somewhere for people. And so you then allow yourself to be the vehicle to get that thought and allow that thought to come into the world. And the second thing is, in these times, it's about, as I said in the email, it's about not stopping doing what we're doing, but just putting these goggles on, these lens of how is what I've got to share going to be helpful to somebody today, where they're feeling like rubbish, they're on the couch, they're flicking through their phone, they see my stuff. Is my stuff tone deaf or is it sensitive to where they're at? And this is the like, I love evergreen content, and I love content that you can use anytime and all the time. But I'm really, really big on not just turning it on and having it set and forget, because it can be very insensitive when you just put stuff out without being, it can come across insensitive, right? And then after all of that, I see a message from another friend of mine who also, you know, runs like a really big, you know, very successful monetary wise. Like, I don't measure everything in monetary, because you can have a successful business that works for your lifestyle, and it doesn't have to be all about the money. But just to give you the gravity of, you know, this person is literally helping thousands and thousands of people with, you know, 7-figure well into turnover, writes the same thing on a you know, group that we, you know, she's a friend of mine, and she writes this post saying, is it just me, but I'm looking at my content going, should it be going out at this time? Because I just feel like, on the one hand, I know I need to help people and people are getting value out of it, but at the same time, I just feel like kind of blah putting it out. And I know that a lot of her content is, because she has a team, is scheduled. So it's a different challenge, like, because when you've got all of this scheduled stuff coming out, yeah, it can be insensitive if you're just putting it out without being mindful of where people are at on any given day. And so the second piece of, or third piece of advice, if the first one is I've even forgotten what it was, but I know I said point one. Help refresh my memory if you want. But the second one was keep doing it, but just overlay that, you know, empathy onto it. The first one was about going, when you're inspired, go with it. The second point was about overlaying that lens of compassion, empathy, understanding, nurturing over anything you're putting out. The third one is just always, when things like, when you start to notice mood shifting in the collective, like in society, whatever geographical area that you're marketing to, especially. So I feel like this one is very global in its nature, just like it was last year around this time in June, July of last year. Sometimes we have incidents where it's localized and it's to a certain city or a certain country, but just be mindful of that, because people, they do expect of these days, people have very, very high expectations of brands, of marketers, and of people. They hold people to account, and they have no problem whatsoever challenging somebody. And so because they expect, and this has come with the level of technology that we have, and also the need to cut through with our marketing and really connect and relate. With that comes the expectation of, you as a brand need to know where I'm at, and not just, you know, that I'm a woman and I'm in Australia, but how am I feeling at the moment? And so when things like that happen and you start to feel, oh, the mood is shifting, people are a bit like anxious or worried or overwhelmed or whatever, I always suggest, if you have scheduling and you have pre-scheduled stuff to go out, the first thing to do is just to put it on pause. And then the second thing to do, and this goes for for any emails that might be scheduled in advance. So I'm not talking about ones where if people opt in for something, they get a confirmation. That's cool, because everyone understands when you opt in, those things are auto-generated. But if you've got a weekly nurture email that you send, and to your point, this will come to your point, Ray, as well, like you might in the future be scheduling things weekly or fortnightly to go out. when things like this happen, you want to just pause on everything and reread, go over anything that before it goes out during those times. And that includes emails, it includes social media as well, because if I was posting something like, you know, not that I would, but myself, you know, at a party throwing confetti or something like that, you know, like you see on Instagram or whatever, that just wouldn't really go down very well at the moment. I'd go, that's probably not a very appropriate post for what everyone is going through. And so, as not to say you don't post your normal stuff, some of your stuff might be completely appropriate, other parts of it you might need to just tweak, and other parts you might, you know, need to pause. But it's just about being mindful of what you're putting out during this time. So they were just a few thoughts that I wanted to share with you. I hope that's helpful, because this is very contextual stuff that you can't always, you know, teach in part of a structured program, because stuff like this comes up of left field. But because this is the business that we're in, communicating and building relationships through content, it's really, really important. So that's why I wanted to take those few minutes and just share that with you there.